Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with thelibertybeacon.com. And I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show. Welcome to the show, Jason Perry. I'm going to do his bio before I officially welcome him on, and then I'll explain why he's here. Former Navy SEAL, former Leo, former atheist, now a CEO for an emergency preparedness firm and pastor of Church Farm Ministry Christian Warrior Mission. Welcome to the show, Jason.
It's so an honor to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. And this show, as Jason and I have discussed offline prior, is kind of a quasi follow-up to two other shows, two other specials. That's why he's on now as opposed to before. I had on Liz Enton, an atheist. Well, we didn't talk religion. We talked afterlife, her scientific view and belief in afterlife. But makes sense. You, as a former atheist, will address that with you. And sure. Clive Savacool, who was a former firefighter, you being a former Leo. So this is kind of a quasi part two to both those shows. So again, thank you for coming on. Appreciate it.
I'm sure I'll be the worst interview out of those two because I'm sure they did great.
Oh, hey, that's good. Humility. That's good. Or at least putting on an air of humility.
Whichever, we'll see.
Yeah. And yeah, I saw you online, and with that bio, you make perfect sense to me to be on ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast. And let's talk about, I guess, your former life as an atheist. Was that when you were a Navy SEAL? Yep. Or
Yeah. So for 37 years, I was an atheist. So I was raised in an atheist household. My grandfather was actually sexually molested by Catholic priests in a notorious orphanage in Newfoundland. Right. So soured the whole family, doomed my whole family to a ton of darkness, a lot of drug addiction, a lot of death, because we didn't have anywhere to go. I was, at 20, I was a complete thug. And one day I woke up and I'm like, man, I'm going to end up dead or in jail. I need to do something. And I didn't believe in God at that point, but I did believe in America. I was raised in Boston, Massachusetts, in the city. And that was before it went totally insane. And so they were still producing patriots then, meaning there was Paul Revere's house. There was, John Quincy Adams' house. So like I walk by it every day. Like Bunker Hill was there. I've been to the USS Constitution. I've been to Fort Independence. Plymouth Rock is real. I've seen the Mayflower, all these different places. So being raised there, I'm like, well, I'm going to serve my country to kind of make up for being a knucklehead. And so I went in, I tried to find the hardest thing I could do. And I went in, and that was the SEAL teams. And I went in, I became a SEAL. I did it for 16 years. While I was deployed, I lost my little brother to heroin. And I went to his funeral. And while I was there, I tried finding some of his friends. I'm like, where are all of his friends? Like, no one's here. Like, it's a skeleton crew that's there. And I cornered one of his friends. And I'm like, where is everyone? This is BS. Where's boom, 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 boom. I'm naming everyone. And they already said, Jay, they're already dead, lost to heroin. And that's when I said, all right, I'm done making third world countries safer. I'm done going to the sandbox. I'm going to invest in my own community, because that was the kickoff to the opioid epidemic in the Northeast, which is now 100,000 dead every year with fentanyl. Right. Like, that's what we allow. Imagine that. That's like more that's more deaths than almost, all wars but the Civil War. I mean, it's really, really hardcore. So again, seeing that, and then that's what my catalyst is. I found God my last year in. So I had a cancer scare, didn't find God, had all this other stuff, didn't find God, but a book made its way into my life called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. And that book was the first time I'd ever heard the scientific case for creationism, right? I'd never heard that. I was never given that option. My wife, who has a bachelor's in science and animal behavior, was also raised in the Northeast, was also indoctrinated this way, was never given the option or the exposure to creationism. So within the first third of the book, I went from atheist to agnostic. And then after I wrapped it, I'm like, well, they've been right about everything else. I'm going to give this Christian thing a go. And that's how I got on-ramped into Christianity.
Wow, your story is similar to a friend of mine, Ed Bondarenka, who is host of Your American Heritage on Wham Radio on Saturdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, whamradio.com. You can listen live there. He, too, ne'er-do-well, drug addicted, but he jokes he decided then not to serve the country. He joined the Air Force.
Best chow halls in the military. Best chow. I got no hate against the Air Force guys. They get the best chow halls. We used to always try to get there to get the good meal.
But yeah, I mean, so he served too, and yeah,
kind of,
right? No, he's the first to joke about it. He will accept that jab every minute of the day. He jokes about it himself. And found Christ and straightened his life around. And his show, Your American Heritage, is about our Judeo-Christian foundations as a nation and those trying to destroy that, either atheists or just communist, which are usually a lot the same. Yep. And the other thing is, you mentioned a book. I'm a big fan of Lee Strobel, who
great
wrote,
guy. That is, The Case for Christ is one. So, and again, I don't mean to jump around on you. I'm sorry, but when I am trying to disciple somebody, I figure out if they're a thought-based or a heart-based, right? If they're thought-based, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist is number one, and The Case for Christ is number two, right? If they're heart-based, I send them to The Chosen, and a couple other things I send them to, right? That's just how we're wired. Either you're one or the other. Very few are both. Both are very helpful, but those two, that's where I split in the road when I'm trying to figure out when I'm talking to somebody and they ask me about God, where, obviously the Bible is number one, but those are two places for Christian curious people to dip their toes in the water.
And one of the reasons, too, why I wrote Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You. Obviously not a normal, natural, traditional, fluffy kind of Christian book, but you got to meet people where they're at, not where you want them to be. So it is a Christian book nonetheless, just not that traditional, fluffy kind, to try to bring them in without beating them over the head with the Bible. It doesn't work.
So it takes all different types, right? So the battle's been won. Christ won it on the cross, right? But we're on the largest POW rescue mission in the history of time itself, right? Our job is to go get the POWs, okay? And with that, okay, there are a lot of battles to be fought. And each battle needs a certain type of soldier. Some of them are PhDs fighting in the seminaries and fighting in academia. Others are on the front lines in the prisons. Others are on the front lines in uniform. Others are, just everyday people in the work front, just discipling their families, right? But here's what we need to do. We need to start teaching application of the Bible, right? The Bible is 100% the manual for solving all problems, period, without exception, okay? And we got to start teaching in a way in common English. When Martin Luther translated the Bible, he didn't translate it in High German. He translated it for the plow worker, for the guy plowing the fields, right? And that's the way we need to be teaching, because let's face it, most men don't want to be in church. Why? Because the pastor's a beta male who doesn't have a callus on his hand, a scar on his body, and he's been a permanent college student his whole life.
That, well, certainly not an unfair statement. I never would have thought to couch it that way, but hey, I'm glad you said it. Ain't that the truth? And this show is about truth.
Well, thank you for doing truth. The truth is not so easily found today.
Yeah, and why I issued my third international book, ChristiTutionalist Politics, as a kind of side guide to the show about, like we're talking, bringing people into the Bible some way or form. It's not likely you're going to just get them to sit down and open the Bible and read it front to cover first. And if they did, a lot of it would go past them. So like you said, with The Case for Christ and the other book, and or like my book about the Bible in full context, and that's why it's called faith. There may be things you're not going to understand in there. Just deal in the things you can grasp and understand. And like you said, I mean, now archaeologists more and more are finding the biblical sites and scientifically demonstrating the truth of what's in there. So they know the Bible isn't a book of fiction, though I like to say the Bible, and people are going to get upset, hope you don't get upset, but the Bible is like a Dr. Seuss book, because we are all children. There are going to be things on this planet and in the spirit realm we're just not going to understand in our lifetime. You don't start a child off with War and Peace.
Sure. So there's a lot of different ways to take that, or ways to go with that. Again, if you are Christian curious, right, you need to find yourself a good mentor, somebody who you can ask questions to, right? Because again, you can go like me. I'm a pastor. I'm a lay pastor. I'm not seminary educated, but I have phenomenal mentors, right, that I can call up. And a lot of times I've split from them on some things, right? So for me, I'm not a 6-day creation guy, 24-hour day creation guy, right? I'm like whatever, I like the gap theory. I like some other things out there that make sense on the time and day of the year. I don't run from science, right? I think God is the author of science. And if we understand the science appropriately, science will always point to God, right? So again, so I split with some people that are my spiritual fathers. I'm post-millennial, they're pre-millennial. I'm a partial preterist, they're not, right? So I try to come at this by the way that I think Jesus would do it. Jesus, didn't sit like all the disciples didn't go off to seminary. They didn't come out with a piece of paper that says, I know what I'm doing. They lived with the man. They walked with the man. They traveled with the man, right? Like what we've turned it into now is this where we have these groupthink places and these, and again, there are some seminaries that are great, I'm sure. But what I find is I would prefer a pastor with real life experience to help me apply the Bible to my life.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Two things on what you said there. The 24-hour Earth hour cycle didn't exist until God created it.
Exactly.
So you can't judge it on 7 days our time. It was 7 days his time.
Exactly. And what is that? What is a day in heaven? Who
right.
the heck knows?
Exactly. That's one of those things we as children will never understand till we're in our Father's arms and can beg and plead him for those answers we don't get. And that's not in the Bible. It doesn't need to be. You don't have to teach children everything. And it's the other thing is commonality. I was on another Wham radio show host show. Actually, my friend Ed was filling in for Pastor Rick. His show is A Moment of Clarity, and they were discussing things, and I called in and chimed in. The devil wins when we focus on the Christian sect differences.
Yeah.
We
major in the minors.
Yeah.
We major in the minors. That is where division happens, and that's when the devil wins.
There's a whole lot in
someone
there.
A heretic because they want to baptize a baby or they want to dedicate a baby. Like, who like, I don't care. I'll do either which one you want. I have my opinions, right? But again, if somebody wants their kid baptized, I'm going to baptize their kid. If they want them dedicated, I'm going to dedicate their kid. Now, in the past, people have been burned at the stake for that disagreement. All right. But now we have so many big problems with atheism and the devil, completely confusing. We're to the point where we don't know what girls are anymore. Like, for real, like the curse of confusion, right? In Deuteronomy, right? We're living that right now. And we don't know what bathroom to use. Like, holy smokes. You could go to find a man in Afghanistan with a second grade education and ask him what a woman is. And he can tell you, but Ketanji Jackson, the Supreme Court person who's supposed to be one of the brightest legal minds in the world, can't tell you what a woman is?
Yeah. Well, she can, she won't.
Right. Well, that's my point, right? It's all about confusing people. It's all about distraction, right? So we lost. God blessed us with the greatest nation to ever live, okay, to ever be around, and we lost it. We lost it by being distracted and entertained, right? We lost it watching endless sports, binge watching endless TV shows, and playing video games instead of going out there and getting stuff done. That's what we did.
Yeah. In February, one of my episodes was Bread and Circus. Exactly. What time's the game on? Now, I've also written a piece for thelibertybeacon.com. Occasional distractions, not just okay, but healthy. The problem is when you're all consumed in the bread and circus.
Yeah.
24/7.
And now, right, like in this economy and where we're at, right? We spend money in the devil's business all the time, right? We go to Starbucks when Starbucks hates God and hates everything about God, right? We watch the NFL, which hates America and divides us on race, right? And our eyeballs are revenue to them. So your time is valuable. Your resource, there's nothing more valuable than time. What you spend your life doing shows where what's most important. Now, most people do their life and they keep God in this nice little box, an hour or 90 minutes on Sunday. And they try to say they love him and he's most important in their life. And, and your time does not reflect that.
I was born and raised Catholic. I no longer attend my church because why? I believe in fellowship as the church, as opposed to why do I want to sit in the pew next to so-and-so that the minute they leave the church is going to stab me in the back first chance they get. Yeah. There's no brotherly love there. Again, every church, your church, I'm just saying I've been to other churches that indeed are great and wonderful. So everybody's church has to be judged on its own merits of whether their pastor is also indeed preaching the whole Bible, not just prosperity doctrine to keep fannies in the pews and the revenue coming into the church. They become their own prosperity doctrine churches.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Ed Bondarenka, and I host Your American Heritage on Saturdays at 2 in the afternoon on this station. Your American Heritage is a show about the struggle we find ourselves in and how to react to it in the light of our biblical and American heritage. Listen to it while you're working around the house, the garage, cleaning the guns, walking the dog, driving, or just lazing around. Join me at 2 o'clock Saturdays here on Wham Radio, 1600 AM, 92.7 FM.
God bless America.
And that really has happened with Christianity has become a consumer-based product. It's become a business. And, and that is where we've gone astray. Part of the reason where we've gone astray. We want our church like a drive-through now. We want to come in, we want our church, we want to come in, get a cup of coffee, sit down, be out of there, childcare, this service, all that. We want to have great music, a short little sermon on something cute, and then we want to leave and go back to our life of sin, right? That is not church. Okay. We are a body. Okay. The enemy wants this finger cut off over there rotting. And that's what happens in self-isolation, right? This finger is meant to be attached to this hand to this wrist to this forearm, to this, to my upper arm, to my shoulder, et cetera, et cetera. We are meant to be a complete body. So our church, I have 44 acres. Okay. I've got cattle. I've got hogs. I've got chickens. I've got shooting ranges, right? Our church isn't like anybody else's church, right? We live life with one another. We provide food. Okay. We work it, right? You can come pretend whoever you want to be for 60 minutes on a Saturday in your best clothes, or 90 minutes on a Saturday. Who are you in the cold and wet outback with large, scary animals, right? When you hit your finger with a hammer? And who are you are you serving one another, right? The first thing I want to know when someone tells me they're Christian, I look at their family. Does their family reflect they're a Christian? And if they don't, they're phonies.
Yeah, and sadly, there are many fakes. And again, a main part of why I feel called to do this show, bringing people back to their Bible in full context, not picking and choosing like Matthew 7, judge not lest ye be judged. Do you want to read the rest of that? And the 12 other scriptures that say to judge biblically and yourself as you do others, not be a hypocrite. So yeah, I know exactly. You and I are on the same page, same sheet of music. And hopefully why I started the show, not just preach it to the choir though, right? At the point to reach out beyond that. And since you mentioned animals, as a shepherd, you tend to the sheep flock on Sundays.
Yeah. And that's something that I really like to talk about here, where I think another part of where Christianity went wrong, other than the business and pastors getting paid, not being bivocational at least, right? So they don't want to offend their biggest donors, right? So because that dries up their salary, right? So there's a conflict of interest there, right? So you can't tell your Democrat congregation that by going and voting Democrat, they're not Christians, right? Because they're going and supporting the murderers of babies, and you can't do that and be a Christian, period. I'll say that all day, every day.
And right now, a lot of them anti-Semitic, supporting Hamas terrorists trying to destroy Israel. Exactly.
It's insane.
Yeah. The world we live in right now is, but let's move on to your Leo days. Let's pivot a bit.
Sure. Sure. Wherever you want to go.
Go ahead and tell us.
So got out and started being, I was a cop. Went through the Boston Police Academy, volunteered for the hardest neighborhoods that I could. Did, as soon as I was off probation, made it right on the SWAT team because of my background. Really liked being a cop in theory, meaning like I liked being able to solve people's problems, right? But people ask me all the time, what was the hardest job you've had? A SEAL, a cop, or a pastor? And I would say, physically, SEAL all the way. Okay. Emotionally, cop, because being hated by people was very real. Like I was sacrificing my mind, my body, my sanity, my family to serve people who hated me. Right. And, no greater love is there than this, than to lay down your life for your friends. Well, cops do it for people who hate them. They do it for their enemy, and they do it for people they don't know. Who does that sound like? Jesus Christ, right? That is Jesus Christ walking it out. So again, but it was so dark working in neighborhoods where no one looked like me and being hated for showing up when I'm like, you called me, you called me. Right. And one of the things that broke my heart one day and where I realized how bad their culture was I showed up to a domestic call. Guy beat the heck out of his wife and we got to arrest him. His son is there. And I said, do you want to step out in the hall so your son doesn't see you getting arrested? He said, no, I want him to see you taking me away from him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're never going to give him a chance, are you?
Nope.
Like, I didn't beat the heck out of your wife. I didn't call 911. You can't control your emotions and you beat up your wife and now you're trying to poison your kid against the people here who are here to help him and your wife. Like that's the legacy you're passing on. And I encountered that day after day after day after day after day. And but I love my job. I did love my job, but my son was born and he had autism. He has autism. And autism is one of those things where the more resources you throw at the front end, the better their life can end, the better their life is on the back end. So I walked away from that, one of the highest paying police jobs in the country, on an elite team, doing great stuff. And to move to Virginia to throw time and resources at my son. I got a job bodyguarding a guy worth $52 billion then. I think he's worth $104 billion now. They'd fly me in for 30 days. I'd bodyguard him, and then they'd fly me home. I could go wherever, it was a great job. I did that for a while until Sandy Hook happened, December of 2012, where an autistic kid walked into an elementary school and killed a bunch of first and second graders and teachers and stuff. And I said, okay, well, I'm done working for a guy who can afford, as many of me as he wants. He's not going to miss me a day. And so I started my training and consulting company, Trident Shield, which is an emergency preparedness, security training consulting company. I've been doing active shooter and emergency preparedness since 2013. And, I was doing that until, gangbusters until COVID hit. COVID hit, the whole industry I took a 90% loss to revenue. We collapsed down. I started working for Mike Lindell. I'm doing security for Mike Lindell and hosting a podcast for him called The Hope Report. Did that for a while. And then security started ramping back up and, COVID ended and now people care about active shooter again. So that's what pays the bills for me is my security and consulting and emergency preparedness work that I do for Trident Shield.
Yep. Yeah.
That brings us to almost, and then while I was during COVID, took that 90% loss to revenue. I'm like, the entire industry is screwed. It's not just me. Right. So I said, if there's ever a time to serve the Lord, I'm going to do it now. And so that's when I did that.
Yeah. A whole lot of people's lives were completely upended due to the Wuhan hysteria, which really was nothing but a fancy flu.
Yep.
And these jabs that aren't vaccines because they don't make you immune to anything. Real vaccine is like polio, tuberculosis, mumps that make at least 99% of the people then immune going forward. But yeah, that's so disrupted virtually everyone's lives that even now that there's a whole lot of people nowhere near recovered from that downtime. Yeah,
well, it's going to sound crazy, but I actually thank God for COVID because COVID actually exposed everybody for who and what they were, right? If you were a phony church, you shut your doors. If your neighbors who turned against you because through the Democrat insanity and wanted to do lynch mobs because you wouldn't wear a mask in your own house, like you got to see everything. And then what it did is it exposed America for what it is now. America is not one country anymore. It's actually two countries. It is conservative states versus blue states, right? So, the freedoms you have in Tennessee or Florida are completely different than the freedoms somebody in Massachusetts or New York has. So I treat going to blue states now like I'm going to another country. I don't enjoy the freedoms that because I am on the different team than they are, and they will treat me accordingly to that. Unfortunately, I'm on Team America, but the America that we knew is gone. It's gone. I don't know if it can come back. There are pockets of freedom in states. Tennessee's one of them. Florida's another. Texas is another. There may be others out there, but vast, all the places where I grew up, I don't even go back to.
Yeah. Another thing with COVID, many people say it was a blessing insofar as it woke up the mama bears. Like I say in my book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, in Naperville chapter, Teresa woke to the fact that she was not the mama bear she thought she was and needed to be for her child, but instead an ostrich, right? Yep. And there was a whole lot, and the COVID Zoom lessons finally woke up a whole lot of people to what was going on because they weren't paying attention.
Well, now the number one best thing to come out of one of the number one best things to come out of COVID is the education exposure to what was going on in the classrooms. So homeschooling exploding, classical Christian education crushing it. Like that's the only place I'd send my kid if I wasn't homeschooling. We're going to homeschool here and we homeschool here. But if I didn't, it would be a classical Christian education. Doug Wilson started an organization called the ACCS. Absolutely inspiring to go to these places. I've done active shooter for some of their schools. It brought tears to my eyes to watch an entire class do lunch, get up and sing doxology, and have watch them teach science from the proper perspective of here's both cases. We believe obviously in creationism.
Yep. I had May Renfro on also in January, mainly about loss, but she too homeschools, and we discuss it. I go into Terror Strikes and my ChristiTutionalist Politics book that the schools, people are aware, are teaching the new core R's, as I call them: radicalism, raunch, and racism through CRT, rather than reading, writing, arithmetic, history, science, STEM, those things. They want the bread and circus again. They want them consumed by anything but the things that would most matter to their ability to survive nowadays. And that's sad. While China is indeed teaching the core R's as well as work ethic and respect and all that.
Well, they're actually teaching masculinity, right? Yeah. While TikTok pumps out transgenderism and trying to confuse our youth, they are 100% pushing masculinity to their men, to their boys as hard as they can.
Yep, exactly.
And that's the divide that we have right now. We have such a confused, torn society. It's really disgusting.
Yep, and it seems like it's getting worse by the day. Now, I was just on social media the other day, earlier today, and somebody was spewing, Biden has no respect for life, and I agree with that. He's a Democrat and supports the wholesale slaughter, especially in Black communities.
Yep.
Why Margaret Sanger created Planned Parenthood to engage in Black genocide. He supports that. But they went on to say he actually killed his former wife so he could marry Jill. Now, true, false, whatever. I don't care if you got evidence or not. To me, that is strategically stupid to talk about. You're just going to get eye rolls. We have so many things going on.
That disciplined.
Yeah, that affect everyone on a day-to-day basis that we need to be addressing, not stupid theory like that.
Yeah, well, we really need to be disciplined, and it's like, I engage on, on Twitter. Pastor Seal Cop is my handle on there. And I am constantly, I'm a DeSantis guy. I wanted DeSantis. I thought DeSantis was going to be a great president. I can't believe we didn't choose him. But, I'm throwing my weight behind Trump, right? I was a Trumper in 2016. I was originally a Marco Rubio guy for a couple months. Then Trump won me over, and and then I was all in on him in 2016. Was all in him on 2020. But I'm not one of these guys who doesn't think he's ever made a mistake. Right? He made a lot of mistakes. I don't drink the Kool-Aid. I'm not a cult member.
Thank you. Exactly.
I can't talk to a Trump like the Trumpers. Like, I'm MAGA, meaning make America great again, and Trump is a part of that. And I think he did some good stuff, but he made a lot of mistakes too. So let's talk about them rationally, right? And we can go forward. But I'm constantly dealing now because MAGA makes it so hard to vote for them or to like them because they're all so bitter. Now, they have every right to be bitter. They've been attacked and demonized for an awful long time now, right? But they have to understand you don't win by shrinking your base. You have to grow your base. And offending, and going after DeSantis and all the reprehensible things that went on, again, I am not an emotional person when it comes to this stuff, right? I knew what Trump was doing. I watched him do it to Ted Cruz, right? So Trump goes scorched earth on everyone. The second they're out, it was business to him. He's back to, he's willing to work with them and do whatever. Like, that's just who he is, okay? Trump, Doug Wilson coined this the best. Trump is the chemo that we need to cure the cancer that we have in our political system right now. Right? No one wants chemo. No one enjoys chemo. It's going to make you feel sick. It's going to make you vomit. Your hair may fall out.
Like mine did.
Yeah. But it's better than dying of cancer.
Yep.
Right?
That's a very, very good analogy. I agree with that wholeheartedly. There's people with Trump derangement syndrome.
On both sides.
And then there are Trump cultists who see no, hear no, speak no. Trump walks on water. No, he's a human. He makes mistakes. His character is piss poor. Right. But I'm not electing a choir boy. You're right. We need that tough love and harsh medicine if we're going to recover or at least stop the bleeding in this nation before we're past the point of no return.
So trying to get people, particularly women, out of their feelings, right? I don't have to like you to vote for you. I just have to look at your policies and understand something. So here's a fact, whether you want to believe it or not. If you're a Christian, Trump has saved more babies than any pastor in the world. Trump has saved more babies than any doctor in the world. Okay. So no matter what he's done on that one issue alone, he's better than any Democrat. Okay. On that one issue alone. Now, how many justices is the next administration going to get? Right. So Trump, do I think he likes evangelicals? No, I don't know if he likes us or not, but he knew that he had a contract with us and he honored his contract. His contract was, you point conservative justices from this list and we'll work with you. Now, a lot of people didn't think he would honor that, but he did. So I'm willing to give him another shot at that because I don't have another choice. If Ron DeSantis was still on the ticket, I'd be doing everything. I went scorched earth on Trump this time around, but it wasn't enough to win. So my choice are godless Democrats or Trump, who I can work with. Who am I going to go for? Trump every time on that out of those days. Am I going to feel good about it? No, but I'm going to do it because we're going to save more babies. We're going to keep our Second Amendment free. Is he who I want to be? Would I trust him with my daughters? No. But you know what? He's a businessman. He will do what's right as far in some areas of this, and he's infinitely better than the baby killers.
Yeah, that's another social media argument. Someone was pointing out, I forget who it was on the left, about, well, they cheated on their wife and this. Oh, they were.
So did Ted Kennedy. So did like almost every politician out there.
Yes,
for real. Yeah, like JFK #1. You want to talk about all of them. I mean, just come on. I don't.
Exactly the point. And they brought Nikki Haley into it because rumor is he cheated or she cheated on her husband while he was abroad in the military. Have you forgotten how many wives Trump cheated on to marry the next? Again, I deal in all reality, not
Right, you
just
got to call
picking
balls
and
and strikes no
choosing.
matter who they are. Right. You
Right.
get a ball. Like, I don't care about that part of her. Here's what I don't like about Nikki Haley. I don't believe she has a single conviction. She'll say and do anything to anyone, whoever has the money and is paying her bills. Right. I don't think she's a conservative. I don't think she has any conviction anywhere other than she wants power. And the guy who propped her up, Paul Ryan and Charles Koch, killed the border wall. So don't tell me you're for closing the border when we have the House and the Senate and Trump in office. He wanted to build a wall and Paul Ryan killed it. Charles Koch owns Paul Ryan. Okay. And that's who killed the wall for cheap labor.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, as you alluded to, people don't like I got to hold my nose and vote for the lesser of two evils. But guess what? No one is perfect, doesn't exist on this planet. Unless you yourself are running, you're always going to vote for a lesser of two evils, because this is where the cultism comes in. If you agree with somebody 100%, do you not ever argue with a spouse?
There's not a theologian or a pastor that I agree with 100%.
Exactly.
Right? And then those are guys who I agree with, some 98%, some 99%, but there's not one where I'm like, yeah, we're identical.
If you agree with somebody 100%, it's either a miracle or you're just a sheeple.
Yeah, and I don't agree with Christ 100%, but I'm wrong and he's right.
Yeah. Yeah, short of Christ coming down and running for the presidency, it's always going to be the lesser of two evils. Yeah. And a lot of people have good and bad. I was joking that one thing about Biden, if you can't find one good thing to say about somebody, you've got derangement.
Yeah, 100%.
Biden months ago came out with more green energy garbage, most of it junk.
Well, that's his cult.
Yeah, I don't agree with it, but there was a piece in there making school buses electric. Well, I don't want kids breathing in diesel fumes. And buses are big, plenty of room for batteries. So could most school buses become green? Sure, let's do that. That's viable. That's feasible. That's doable. The solar and wind farms are not feasible, doable things. They're boondoggles.
Here's the thing with all the electric stuff, and I'll just make one point. If everybody went electric tomorrow, our power grid would completely collapse.
Yep.
Right? We don't have power enough as it is right now. Okay. Because we don't want to build nuclear reactors, which is the safest form of electricity on the planet, the most effective out there. So if we're not going to do that, it's not even realistic to even talk about. It's 100% fantasy, right? Ask all these people who have Teslas in cold climates how they're working, or all these that can't start. Ask Texas how all their wind farms worked for them when they hit that cold snap, right? Again, we have all this money. Again, I'm an all the above guy. All the above. Let's do all the above, but let's be responsible. Okay.
Yeah.
And if we do all the above, I think we can move forward. And someday the technology may catch up to where it's at. But we should be trying to get coal cleaner. We should be trying to get natural gas cleaner. We should be trying to get gasoline and oil cleaner, right? Let's try to get these things to work. And let's do an all the above approach instead of saying one's bad, this and that, and everything else. And it just doesn't telling you working a farm and having to use diesel and having all these other things. All of us know 100% when you have a chainsaw, right? I have an electric chainsaw that I used to do a little brush, but when trees are down and people's lives are on the line, I'm going to get my gas powered saw because I need it to work.
Yep, exactly. And as Christians, we understand we are to be stewards of the other animals on the planet and the planet itself. It doesn't mean being stupid about it, though. It means doing what's reasonable, practical, and doable. And coal has gotten a lot cleaner. We're sequestering the carbon, which is, the CO2 has been far greater parts per million all kinds of times in history. You know, you
You know
liberals.
what's exploding because of that? Plant growth.
Yes, exactly.
We have more trees now than we've ever had,
And
in
we're
the
able
past
to
300 years now.
We're able to feed more people. They would rather us be colder and people dying due to starvation or freezing in the cold because you can't have a gas furnace. It just makes no sense.
Oh, it does. It's demonic, and it's the weapon of the enemy, and it's
Yeah.
deliberate, right? There's no misinformation. This is a deliberate attempt. It's not confusion on their part. They are making a decision to try to keep the population down. Just it's like we used to go, like it used to be, all these nations had nationalism, right? You were a proud Italian, you were a proud Irishman, you were a proud Englishman, you're a proud German, you're a proud American, you're a proud Canadian, right? Now it's only World Economic Forum, and all they want to do is control everything, and you'll own nothing and be happy and eat bugs.
Yeah. I was thinking of another thing, and it's left my mind. Oh, the environmental tards, as I call them. We can't get our own oil and be energy independent, which means it's less expensive and more people can afford it then. And our food is also cheaper rather than the high price of
And it's
diesel.
cleaner than anywhere else on the planet.
That's exactly where it's going. I saw somebody complaining about oil, and we have the light sweet crude, the best oil there is around. It costs less to distill it. It burns less to distill it. It burns less when we're burning it.
AKA cleaner for all you people out
Yes,
there.
but no, they would rather us get oil from Venezuela or Iran and ship it across oceans, which takes fuel and energy, and those ships ain't electric and ain't never going to be electric, and would have us distill the heavy crude, which costs more, raises the price, burns worse. So by drilling here is actually far more environmental than what they want us to do. But you're right, it is a cult. It is a planet worship cult that only has feelings, no thoughts and rationale. Because of nuclear, I'm all for nuclear. Nuclear technology is leaps and bounds from, what was the meltdown in Pennsylvania?
Chernobyl. Oh, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Well, Chernobyl's a fine example too.
Or even Japan, right? You don't build a nuclear reactor on a fault line.
Right. we know better now. So we could be doing that, but again, like the founder of Greenpeace left the movement because it's not an environmental movement anymore. It is a leftist movement, all about leftism.
It's an anti-humanist movement, right? It's anti-human. It's about depopulating, right? Elon Musk is one of the few people out there who's actually saying we are about to have a massive shortage of people to carry society forward. And I believe him as we look at, it used to be, let's just look at America, right? Back in the 50s, 60s, we'll say, for every person in the cart, we had 20 pulling the cart. Now we've got 20 people in the cart for every person pulling the cart.
Yep.
That doesn't work.
Nope. And Atlas is going to shrug very soon.
Yeah.
That's
why I live in Tennessee and I have 44 acres. I buy two things. I buy precious metals, lead, and I buy things that make other things or fix other things.
Yeah.
So animals that make other animals, or things that will make something or fix something. That's all I buy.
Yep. Okay. Let's wrap things up here. Where can people find your emergency service preparedness and otherwise contact you?
Sure. So Trident Shield is where I do my emergency preparedness and my security consulting and training. That's for active shooter for businesses, churches, schools, etc. My ministry is Christian Warrior Mission. You can find me on all social media platforms, ChristianWarriorMission.org. And we do something, we stream live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 9 p.m. And we do what's called Christian Warrior Talk. It's a not a 9-hour show. It's about an hour show where we fight 3 battles. We do get a humble and grateful heart aligned onto the Lord. We pursue a relationship with him through prayer and through studying of his word. And then we spend time in fellowship focusing on 5 pillars: faith, family, fitness, fundamentals, which is your skill set, and finances. So I would love to interact with you guys there.
All right. Thanks for joining us today, Jason. Take care. God bless.
Thank you. God bless you, brother.
Thank you for having tuned in for ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff, no fancy high production intro or inserts, at least yet, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help to grow the show.
It is a myth that terrorism stopped during COVID. Unfortunately, mainstream media opted to prioritize pandemic hysteria over promoting all news. Terrorism continues. Simply hoping that it doesn't affect you is not a strategy. The new book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, featured on The Author Show, is now available in paperback from bookstores, online, or as an ebook exclusively through Amazon Kindle. Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you by Joseph M. Leonard. Order today.